And I'm asking Uli Dekker, the filmmaker, a few questions about the film, and then we'll take questions from the audience later on and comments. Are you all Icelandic?
No.
No? No. Okay. And góðan daginn, welcome. So, the first question I wanted to ask you is when you found out on your father's deathbed that he was a transvestite and that he was actually living a similar existence to yourself, what was your first thought?
No, I didn't think that he was living a similar existence to myself, but I suddenly had this feeling that there was someone who could have been an ally in my family,
okay.
but who hid the whole time behind this facade, and I felt betrayed by him in that way. But on the other hand, I was really sad, and I would have loved to run into this little town where I grew up and shout it into all the windows and tell it all the people. I don't know, I was also proud because I like my father, his appearance when he was wearing men's clothes, he didn't really put a lot of effort into that. Like, it wasn't his hobby to dress up, and he always had these grayish, dark blue clothes and nothing special, and so I thought, wow, there was this really colorful side to him that he was only able to express in secret, and I would have loved to get to know that side of him too.
Okay. When I watched the film, I felt I saw a parallel between your two stories, just as a viewer. And as a transgender person myself, I could relate to you both, because you were both fighting against this stereotypical gender norm. And his grayness was really his disguise, I felt. And his real expression came when he was dressing up. And the phrase that stuck with me, and at the end of the movie you said stuck with you as well, was his phrase of, I had no interest. How did you put it? He had no interest.
I know it in German, but in English it's
he had no interest of becoming a woman,
but
but transcending masculinity to
his
free
male
himself.
role.
Yeah, to be free.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel you are transcending gender stereotypical roles?
Yes, but my view on that has changed in those years that I am on this planet. When I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to do all the things that boys were supposed to do and that men were supposed to do, and I found it much more attractive to be strong and to be a leader, and but probably also because it was always marketed in that way, because being male had much more prestige. And today, I sometimes think there is still a complete lack of, or not a complete lack, but a big lack of strong female figures, and also femininity, like a positive, strong image of femininity, because it's been so looked down upon during so many years and oppressed in all of us that and I mean there's a lack of many things, also positive sensitive maleness and whatever. I mean, there's so many images that we can still create and live and develop in us. And but I feel that I was completely lost growing up as a girl because of these very limited possibilities that I was supposed to have, and also the being sexualized. I mean, and not having your own. Having the feeling that your body doesn't belong to you, and that having the possibility of having children is not something positive, or it's something that degrades you. There were so many things that I would wish had been different. And at the same time, the male part is still something. I mean, I like to be strong too. I like so many things, so I don't really limit myself to being a woman or a man or whatever. I don't care.
So your gender is a human being, just simple as that.
Yes, and I like to play with roles.
Yeah. Now, making a movie like that is quite vulnerable, and you're opening up not just yourself, but your family to the entire world, and you are really opening your father's closet, in a sense. And you are freeing him. Well, that's my point of view. You're finally setting him free to the world, to be himself. Now, that's a tough choice to make, but what I really admired was how much of an ally your mother was. She loved him regardless, she loved you regardless, and during your confirmation, your father said you can just wear a suit. She was always the one that came to the rescue. Well, you don't agree. That's how it came across in the movie.
No, she insisted on the gender roles. Like,
okay.
she was really the one who who made it clear that it wasn't her choice, that I was choosing to wear trousers, I cut my hair short and all these things. She has this very expressive face, and you always notice when something's not right. You will see it in her face, and I always noticed that she wasn't quite happy with my choices. So that's why I was surprised how she reacted with my father, because for her it was very important to, like, what other people thought of us. But she developed, like, she evolved in an incredible way until today. So she became wider and wider, which is quite astonishing.
Yeah, that came across in the movie. Mm. You can see how she had evolved as a person.
Yeah.
And became the ally. So she wasn't the ally from the beginning. But now I've lost my train of thought. Well, when you were growing up in Bavaria, mm-hmm. Is that true? And it was very typical and very Catholic.
Yeah, it's in the south of Germany, almost Austria.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think in my village or in my little town there were probably 80% Catholics, 20% Protestants.
Okay.
So, and there's lots of Catholic traditions.
So, and you talked about in the movie that you never felt seen by your father until you heard the recording, his voice, when he sent you the Mozart track. So, do you think that through the film you finally see your father?
Well, you can only see parts of people, but of course I got more knowledge about him by reading what he wrote, and I also created my father in the movie, because what's really important for me is that I wouldn't call this film documentary, because I mean, there are elements of documentary in it, but there's a lot of fantasy in it, and of course I chose what I'm showing of my father and how I tell the story, and when I had to decide, actually I always wanted to make a fiction movie about this story. Already when I was sitting there next to his bed, I wanted to. I was imagining actors playing and having a script, and where I could invent lots of things, and I didn't have to stick to reality. And when, in the end, I had to make a documentary for many reasons, it was really important for me that the first ingredient without which I would never have made this movie, but we didn't know how to get it, was humor. And the second one was playing with fantasy and with fiction and reality. And so, yeah, I created my own father, and I hope he would like it.
I'm sure that he will, wherever he is. There's a lot of humor in it. For example, when you say all the interesting stuff is done by people with beard, that was really funny. Of course, from my point of view, I don't agree, but do you still think that all or the most interesting things are done by people with beards?
Not really.
No.
I mean, but today we can see that more, and we have more movies that tell different stories. Like being a 4-year-old in front of the television or in church. I grew up with no Bundeskanzlerin Merkel.
Yeah.
There were hardly any female politicians. And there were no female priests. I think there still aren't.
Not in the Catholic Church now.
So I think we have evolved a lot. Now I knew hardly any female film directors. So when I first was standing in film school and I wanted to apply, there was this whole wall of the names of the teachers, and it was only men, and one woman that became quite famous nowadays. But I thought, no, then I should really walk out here, because nobody will want to know about the stories I want to tell, because they don't really exist. And so I had to take a detour of 20 years to be able to make the films that I want to make.
Okay, because here in Iceland, a lot of the female directors, they say it's much harder to get the funding for their projects than it is for their male counterparts. Is it the same in Germany, would you say?
Yes. I don't want to make a mistake now, but there has been a study, I think 2020 or 2021, and I'm not completely sure about the numbers, but I think maximum 25% of state funding in Germany goes to films made by women. It's also because most of the time they apply with less, with a smaller budget. Many of them make documentaries or indie movies, and the big productions, they are mostly directed by men. And it's slowly, well, it's not really, it's very, very, very slowly shifting. And I'm part of an organization that's called Pro Quote, and we're trying to get a quota, which I think is the only thing that works faster than just waiting for society to evolve, or for the people who take the decisions to evolve.
Yeah, I think it's less than 20-25% of the projects in Iceland made by women. And just recently there was an article by a female director, quite a well-known female director, that had been fighting for her project for 8 years without any success, while a lot of other crap has been made, to put it mildly. But let's get some questions from the audience. Any questions? Should I?
No, I'm yelling. I have a loud voice. So there's greetings from one Bavarian, from one like gender transcendent Bavarian to the other. You rock! And now, now that you talked about like quota society evolving and like there is still so much to be done, is there like a celebrity, particularly maybe from Bavaria, who you would like this film to see? And what else do you think we could do to improve the situation as a society?
Oh my God, that's what a question. For the premiere in Munich, I am inviting Doris Dörri, the film director, and the Archbishop of Munich, and several people from the church, because my cousins work for the church and they know those guys. I don't know if they are going to turn up. I'm also inviting in Berlin, we have a gender representative in the government now. And some people who are already writing books about the subject. So, and in my hometown, I'm inviting the Trachtenverein. Like I want to. Actually, I made the movie to be seen by people who don't normally deal with these subjects, these topics, and my audience, my imaginary audience was the traditional group that you see walking through the center. And I thought, what do I have to do? How do I have to tell that story so that if they happen to come to the cinema, they don't get up and walk out? And I hope that works. I don't know. I don't know. Do you have ideas how the movie could be seen by many people? It's going to start in the cinemas on the 20th of October in Germany and on the 4th of November in Austria. And I'm also asking myself, how can I bring people into the cinema? Also people who might probably not go to see a movie with a queer topic.
Well, there are several queer festivals around the world that this movie definitely belongs to. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm not sure, because I can't hear myself on the microphone. So you definitely should tour this film, because as a queer person myself, it's not often you feel seen by a movie, if that makes sense. But I felt, in a strange way, even though my reality doesn't match, I felt seen, because I'm born roughly around the same period as you. I'm born 1970, and I grew up in a household where basically I was told that I was possessed by demons, and you talk about that in your movie. There's people possessed by demons. So I'm curious, this relationship you have with the church, and you want to bring the church to see it. What's the end game there? What do you want? Do you want them to be able to admit they are wrong, or just to be able to see you, see your father, see the queerness?
I mean, I have no hope in the church, in the official church. I know many courageous and idealistic people who work inside the church, and and that's the only reason why I cannot condemn it completely, but I don't have a lot of hope in the involvement of the Catholic hierarchy.
So
Maybe
why invite them?
I think because it's a movie that is not black and white, and it doesn't open drawers, and that it puts something inside and closes them. And it's maybe a movie that, because I wanted to guide the audience through an experience, and maybe seduce them to be able to step in the shoes of somebody else that they normally wouldn't identify with if they are not queer. And I wish that works also with people from the church. I had some people who watched it who are working for the Catholic Church, and I got an award from the Catholic and Protestant Church. So I mean, what's my hope there? I don't know. I just want them to see it and to realize that being queer is so normal, and maybe they are queer too, and don't allow it or don't admit it or whatever.
Well, definitely it won't hurt them to watch it. It will do them a lot of good, and perhaps some of them will come out of their own closets.
And what's tragic is that that the church has so much power worldwide. Like, its influence is going back in Germany probably, but in so many other countries it has a lot of influence, and it can destroy so many people's lives if there's no acceptance. And I'm not talking about tolerance, because I think what hurt me most when I was growing up inside the church, and I had very good experiences with priests and with the community I was growing up in, but at the same time feeling that a certain kind of love is not blessed, it's not called holy, and you're constantly confronted with people getting married and their love is blessed, and you feel something that is so because my feeling always was, it's the holiest thing I can ever feel. And then from the outside, someone tells me, this doesn't exist, or this is not what God wants. It hurt me so much. And not having examples of, and positive examples of that kind of love really hurt me. And I think it hurts a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of queer people, I included, we grew up in the time where we were told that probably we were the way we were because we were possessed. So it's another factor that need to be kind of confronted. Mm. And I think you do that in the movie. You confront this issue quite well, because your father was, he made peace with God in his own way, and he was quite religious, wouldn't you say so?
Yes, and that's the interesting thing, that on the one hand there's the church with its rules and its moral condemnation, and on the other hand, when my father in this Bible group, they started to read the New Testament in a very psychoanalytical way, and reading these stories of liberation, and having Jesus, who was not someone who said you're not allowed to live like this or like that, and who was probably someone quite revolutionary and quite open-minded. That did him a lot of good, and I think, and the church and the Bible are two sometimes very opposite things.
Yeah, and God probably the third thing in the mix. Any final words, any questions that you felt that I should have asked that I haven't asked so far? Because I saw him looking at his watch. Yes?
Yeah, I'm just really interested in how you made the movie, because like the animations are amazing, and just in whole it's quite beautiful. How was the process of creating all the animation and that kind of stuff? Like, did you make the story itself and then like fit it in with animation, or how was the process of the whole movie?
Well, how much time do you have? Yeah, but that's actually the question I was missing.
About the animation?
About how we made the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. As I started from this fiction idea, and I didn't want to be recognizable, and I didn't want my family to be recognizable. I had a friend with whom I wrote the first book for the first script for the movie, and we said, okay, let's make not a real documentary, but an animation movie like Persepolis. I don't know if you know Persepolis, and it's an animated movie, but you know that it's the story of the director. And we thought let's make an animation movie with a few interview bits. But then when we applied for funding, we found out that we could never get these millions of euros that we would have needed for animation, because it's so expensive. And then the whole thing became more and more documentary, and it really scared me. The more I had to think of a documentary, the less I wanted to make the movie. And so in the end, we could afford 10 minutes of animation, and I didn't want to use animation just to use animation, because it's, I don't know, fashionable or whatever. So I thought it has to have a reason. It has, and I thought that my inner world as a child and growing up would be the perfect place to put the animation, and also using the images that were portraying our facade as a family, in order to create this inner universe, would be that was for me was the best solution, and then. And the animation parts, they come from, because I had my father's diaries, and I wrote 150 pages about growing up as a girl and all my memories of the growing up, the coming of age process. And most of the things I tell about my childhood are from these 150 pages. And it's such a long process, but we really had a script. And we always worked with the script, and we changed the script again. And then when we started editing, we edited a prototype for the movie with what we had, like parts of research interviews and bits that we already had of filmed material, and some photos, and then a lot of images from the internet as a place. I don't know how placeholder for what we didn't have, and we checked if the dramaturgy would work in that way, and we found out that it wouldn't, and so we had to change everything. So it was a long process, and it took like 6 years overall to make the movie. But I had been thinking about it for 17 years, so it's been a long process.
It looked great, at least. Good job.
Thank you.
I have like an additional question to this one. So all the voiceover of your father, like it's his words, literal words from his diaries.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it, the whole movie, like how special and unique it is that he had this story and he also kept journals about it, because we don't know how many people are there or were there out there, because we have no records of it. We don't know what they thought, how they were thinking, and what they were feeling, and it's very special that your father has kept that you decided to share it with the world.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Since I'm not a filmmaker, but an actress, I was more interested in the personal aspect of the characters. And one of the things that I saw you used was we didn't see your face for a very, very long time. And you were hidden as the interviewer when you were interviewing your sister, interviewing your mother. And then we saw snippets, and then we saw the animation and stuff like that. So what was the reason that made you think, I want to be hidden at the kind of the first half of the movie?
I wanted the audience to look through my eyes
Okay.
and go on an inner journey and not observe me while I'm questioning my mother and my sister and everybody. And I had seen lots of personal documentaries about family topics, and I really wanted to avoid I had seen movies where people thought that it's interesting if you talk with your mother about family issues and the camera observes you. And in those movies, sometimes I had the feeling I don't really want to sit with them at that table. It's not. I feel like I'm intruding, and I didn't want to be part of that. There are very few movies that are personal, and I don't feel that they are private and not concerning. But like, yeah, I actually thought of the audience from the beginning and how I could make them go on that journey. And then I'm also complicated when it comes to photos or I mean, my camera woman, she would have had a very hard time having to film me, and then I would have cut out almost all of it, and we would have needed a stylist and everything. So it was much cheaper to do it that way.
Well, you definitely took us on a journey.
And you see me at the beginning with the beard.
Yeah, with a beard,
Yeah.
yes. And I noticed that, and I noticed also when you were rowing on the boat, and you had this nice red dress, and your father had a red dress, but you had the mask with a man with a beard. So in those moments when you're kind of acting out your father's fantasies, where he's wearing the red dress quite often, is the red color, does it have any significance? Because you were, when you were rowing on the boat with the beard, you were also wearing red.
I chose red. I mean, the dress I'm wearing is not actually my father's dress. I have to disappoint you. I bought it later because my mother threw away his dresses before I could keep them. And he had this photograph of, I think it's Anouk Aimée in a red dress in his folder, and in one image you see it also in the movie. It's very quick when I'm putting the makeup on. You can see this image, and when I had to choose the dress and the color of the dress, and for me red and blue were the main colors of the movie, and red was really the color of the heart and the blood and passion, and so yeah, I chose red to represent all of this. And as I wrote my sort of thesis for university about Pedro Almodóvar. I'm quite influenced by him.
Brilliant, fantastic.
His early movies.
Yeah. So how much time do we have?
It's a little bit over it, but it's done.
Okay.
It's 10 minutes until the next movie.
Okay. So any last comments or questions?
I have one. What was the reaction of your family when you told them that you would like to make a movie about your father and you, and it was supposed to be fiction now, but when it happened to be a documentary, like what was the process of, I don't know if they were hesitant to it or how did they feel about talking about it, and the fact that like a lot of people are going to see their story and them.
My mother, before I wrote the first treatment for the movie as a documentary, I interviewed her. I made a test interview and I brought a camera to her house and we spoke for 3 hours, and it was really exhausting, but I realized that she was able to talk about the topic in front of a camera. And she was also willing to help me, and my sister was also willing to help me. So nobody refused. It wasn't their, it wouldn't have been their choice to make a movie about this. But I was the one who was really scared. And I panicked the whole time. I really felt that if I couldn't find the right tone for the movie, we would all lose our face in front of everybody. So it felt like those 6 years of making the movie were so terrible for me because I had a heartache the whole time. I was really scared that it wouldn't work, and it only in the last weeks of editing I kind of calmed down because I felt, oh wow, yeah, maybe we are getting it, and yeah, it was quite it felt very dangerous.
And how are you feeling now that it's out?
Better. No,
your expectations, like, yes, this is how I imagine it with the budget problems and.
I like the movie. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's simple.
And and I feel that I did what I had to do, and now I can choose what I want to do. And it feels also, the movie feels like a place. Like it feels like it's weird, but I never fit in any of these labels and drawers. And I can identify with the movie. Now I have a movie, everybody can watch it, and then they know.
Choose the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your beautiful piece of art, and we need more movies like this, kind of honest and heartfelt about complicated stories and complicated lives. So, any last words? You have done what you had to do. Now you can do what you want to do.
And I mean, we are still going to be outside, and it's nice to hear from you what came across.
Yeah.
I will be annoying. I will be annoying.
Great.
Everyone.
And I brought some postcards that are lying outside, and you can take some. And tomorrow the movie is playing at 10:30 at night. Maybe you can encourage some people to come. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.